Hey everyone, this is Carlos. I'm the founder and CEO at Product School. And today I'm here with the VP and GM at Twilio segment, Jodi Alperstein. Hey Jodi,
Hi, Carlos. Thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here.
thanks for being on the show. Your LinkedIn background is incredible. So I feel like we probably need more than one episode to break it down and try to get as much information as possible. But I'm going to try to do it in one. I need to tell you more about how you got your first PM job.
Yeah. That first PM job is so exciting. And how do you get into it? How do you get there? For me personally, I stumbled into it. I didn't know what it was at the time. I joined E-Trade back in, well, I'm not going to say when, you can find out on LinkedIn, but a while ago. And I came in to do strategic development, actually. A mentor of mine brought me in and I was buying companies. I think I had been there for a month and the CEO said, have you bought anything yet? I'm like, next week. And, did that for about a year. And then we determined that we didn't really need that department anymore. So I found myself on a hunt for a job. And I wound up working for the chief product officer, kind of almost like a chief of staff, but not quite. My role was to put in a product prioritization process for all of E-Trade because we hadn't really been doing it formally. It was more who you knew, it's how you got things funded. And back then, things I'm sure have changed. And so that's what I did at first across the entire organization, put in this prioritization framework. And then I also worked on the steering committee for a new redesign of the entire website, which was very, very, very large. And it involved every single product manager. And I had never done product before. I was working with every single one of them. And that's when it clicked to me. This is the job I want. All these other things I had kind of done in my career, that wasn't right. And from there, I went in and after a year of supporting her, did the product management role and rose up through the ranks and, ended my career at E-Trade after 8 years as a senior director and having done quite a few different roles at the time. So it was a great experience, great place to learn the craft of product management.
And I find that really cool because you said you didn't know what product management was. You just said yes to a challenge, and suddenly you discovered that that was actually really cool for you.
Exactly. It was really neat, and I've been essentially doing it ever since. So it's been a while.
And did you say that there was a chief product officer at E-Trade when you were there?
That's right. That's right.
Because that role is becoming more and more popular these days. I think the last time I checked, it was around 1/3 of the Fortune 500 companies that have that role. And I'm sure it's going to become more popular. But, how was having a chief product officer when product wasn't cool?
Well, I mean, again, this was the early 2000s. I think E-Trade was ahead of the game on a lot of different things. They were extremely
Totally.
innovative. So, she was really responsible for not only product, but content as well. And, it was pretty critical. It was the digital product. E-Trade was one of the first financial services companies that really translated their product to the internet, coming out in the 90s with it. And so they were transformative into what is digital product management versus, say, a financial product manager who's managing, the credit or something like that. And it was great. It was a great opportunity. She was very inspirational and really, really helped a lot of people understand what the role is and what it was we needed to do in order to drive impact for our customers and for the business.
So I'm looking at your formal education. Right? It says like you have a BA in psychology. So
Yep.
how does a psychologist end up leading products?
I know, it's so funny. So things are different today than they were back in the day. I was mentioning, like, there was no product school. You learned how to do it as you went. And so I had an even more bizarre early career that I won't get into. But I think for me, it was really about using just my smarts and learning as I went and being willing to follow the curiosity and do what needed to get done. I do not have formal training in this. I don't. That's it. I mean, that's
Yeah.
all I can say. Yeah.
And then so obviously E-Trade's a big company in financial sector, but I'm looking at other places like you work at Credit Karma, Hire.com, now Twilio segment. So there's a lot of people out there who are thinking, well, when you break into product, you have to work in a pretty much similar domain so that you can prove that you can add some value even if you don't have the official title. That's one angle. There might be others, but like you've proven that you've been successful across so many different industries, right? And like, is there any type of connection, or how do you go about switching industries?
Yeah, it's another great question about how to switch industries or how to just grow. And I think it's about being curious, being open to learning. I do think one of my personal superpowers is understanding context very broadly and knowing when to go deep. And there are definitely roles where having that deep domain expertise really matters. But in many cases, the skills of product management, I think, are fairly transferable. And certainly when I'm recruiting for people, I am looking at a pretty diverse team that I want to hire. Product management, and from my experience, it is that cross section between the user, business, and technology. And there's not one path to get here. And I don't know if you've ever seen this diagram. It's basically just a triangle, equilateral triangle. And kind of the perfect product manager is so well-rounded that they sit right in the middle of that equilateral triangle. And they have experience from all of those different areas. Most of us come from one or the other. Me, I'm a little bit more business user oriented versus technology engineering oriented, but you can come from any angle. And you use your strengths to continue to grow and develop, lean in. And that's that motivation that you're going to get better in the things that you're better at. You should work on the things you need to develop as well. But, and I think if you have that curiosity and that willingness to learn, and somebody willing to give you a chance, you can just jump into it and make it happen.
So now that you are at Twilio segment, public company, Twilio recently acquired segment for 3.2 billion, I believe. You guys recently hosted a huge conference remote, but I remember I live in San Francisco. I remember when Twilio was in town for their Signal conference, like the entire city would turn red, like
Yes.
with their billboards and everything. What is that? What is like to your day-to-day like now with another public company with a lot of people that are part of your product team?
Yeah. So in terms of a day-to-day, and you're right, there is some differences between being at a public company versus early startups. And as you mentioned, E-Trade, I was also at Moody's for a long time. And then these last 6 years at a number of startups. And I would say certain things are very much the same, no matter where I've worked. And that is I start my day with the daily dashboard. I am looking at the numbers. I'd like to be very data-driven, customer-driven, and data-driven in understanding what's happening. So I look at that. I make sure things are on track, see if anything's glitchy, and because sometimes things happen. You want to be able to address that right away, or if there's any new trends coming up. And then honestly, for me and what I'm doing today, I say my job is meetings most of the time. I'm either meeting with my direct team, I'm meeting with one-on-ones, I'm meeting with other executives, I'm meeting with customers. Literally, that's what I do for a living. I meet. So.
And I'm glad you were so upfront with that, because it's true. Like, and it's not for everybody, right? Like, a lot of people who really like to just stay there in the front line and build, which that's actually something that I miss a lot. I also spend a lot of time meeting, and I think sometimes in leadership roles, you probably need to spend more time empowering others who are actually building.
That's right. Absolutely. Your job as a leader, I think, is to empower, and you need to set that context. You need to set the vision, and you need to then give them that space to go and run. That it's really, really central. I also think one of the things that's been really great over the last, I don't know how many years now, but a trend where there's not just one way to get ahead in product management. It doesn't just need to be managing others. To your point, not everybody likes that part of the work. Some people want to be a product manager, proper at a very, very senior level. And we're seeing that happen now at the same way that it happens for engineers being able to go the architect route, or, the designers who want to be a chief designer versus managing the entire design org. You can do the same thing in product management today, and decide which path you want to be on.
That is so great, because I remember when I started product school, a lot of people would come to us saying, I want to be a product manager at company X. Like, okay, imagine if you actually get the job, then what, right? Like, in a way, you're just starting your journey. And it's good to see that there are so many different options. You can grow as an individual contributor, you can grow as a people manager, and there is no right or wrong answer.
That's true. I will say, I do believe in product management, maybe in every roles, but maybe more so than in others. Even at the senior levels, you are expected to do more than just manage and mentor, right? The strategy sits with you. The accountability for the execution sits with you. The responsibility for a P&L often sits with you. Not always. Some orgs, the P&L is not in product. And so you need to be enough in the weeds with what's happening, and helping to direct that strategy, but not micromanaging it. Again, getting to that context and setting the open. And so even people who go the management route, my leaders who report to me in product, they are very much not only managing individual product managers, they are doing a lot of the strategy work themselves.
So for you, what would you say are those key skills that help you go from being a great individual contributor to being a great VP of product?
Yeah, so that's a great question in terms of the skills that help you go from being a great VP or great individual all the way up to a VP. And it is some of the things we talked about already around making sure you have a really clear vision and strategy, and the empowerment of the team. But leadership itself also requires more than that. You need to be able to have strong values within your company and ensure that those values are translated into the culture. And for me, I believe in a culture of execution. So ensuring that your teams have the tools that they need necessary in order to execute, being service driven to know how to remove obstacles for people without going in and solving every problem for them, because they want to have that agency to be able to do it themselves. I would also say there's a lot of empathy that needs to go into it. Not only the empathy that you're going to have for your customers, but the empathy that you're going to have for your colleagues. Product management is such a cross-functional role, right? And I always say the best product managers are able to be strong generalists. And I mentioned before that you might come from one particular area or another and have a super strong strength in there, but they wind up filling in, I describe it like this, so many different gaps, right? So the product manager is obviously responsible for the product strategy, but there are a lot of things that need to happen, whether it be the technical design or the development or the program management or legal reviews or go-to-market strategy and working with marketing and rolling it out and enabling it. There's just so many things. And if the product manager doesn't here I'm going like this, move in a little bit to be able to do a little bit of every single one of those roles, you have a gap. And when things fall through the cracks and don't happen, then your product probably is going to fail, right? That's not going to be a culture of execution. So having, the thing that you're really good at, but then knowing enough about everything else that you can ensure that things don't fall through the cracks, I think that's a really, really important skill set.
I keep thinking about the T-shape idea, right? Of being cross-functional, but also at certain areas you can go deep. And one thing that caught my attention, as I saw your title, VP and GM.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the difference between a VP and GM?
So, I think VP is basically the corporate level. General manager represents the actual role. So, as a GM, I'm responsible for more than product. I'm responsible all the engineering, rolls up to me, as well as product operations, technical operations, documentation, and then I have accountability for the P&L for my business unit. And so that is the difference between, I'd say, a GM and a VP of product might just have the product managers reporting to them. They may also have some of the other roles. In some places, people call it a head of product, and it includes engineering, but usually a head of product doesn't include engineering.
Yeah, no, I'm glad we're talking about that, because there's a lot of confusion, especially in startups, right? Where there might be a small team where everyone is a VP.
Yes. This is not that situation.
Definitely not.
At all. I feel very, very fortunate to have this responsibility, and really it's leadership over an incredible team that delivers just an incredible amount of work on the regular basis in terms of understanding what the most important things are for us to do for our customers and problems to solve, working through the day-to-day of execution and being able to ship it, and then working collaboratively with our marketing and sales teams to ensure that our customers get access to it. So it's I like to say I'm overhead, but they're the ones doing all the hard work.
And I'm grateful that you are here with us, finding time to give back to the community. This is a huge opportunity, and I personally like to ask these questions because there wasn't really that much clarity, and what was one of the reasons why we create Product School, just so we can learn like how to actually grow.
Yeah, I think it's important. I think you also touched on something that's really important. It could be titles, but it could also just be, what is product management? It is not the same in every company at all. And there are different methodologies, and for the way people do product, different approaches, whether you're talking waterfall or agile, whether the product manager is super strategic and really setting the strategy, and your engineering team is really figuring out the how of what it is. There are other places where product is expected to really articulate every last requirement down to, every single definition of done and user acceptance criteria. Some companies, it's much more high level, and your product designers and your researchers and your engineers are coming in and really solving the problem that you as a product manager has identified as, this is the important problem for us to solve. This is our key, metric that we're going for. And team, I want you to figure it out how. And it's not the same in every company at all.
So one thing I found about product leaders or leaders in general is that the curiosity never stops, right? And so I want to know, what are you curious about learning these days, and how do you find time for investing in yourself?
It's a great question in terms of curiosity does never stop. That is true. There's two ways I think about this in terms of the problem space that I'm super interested in. It's of course what we're focused on, and solving the big data problems for our customers. But in terms of myself and my own curiosity, I'm thinking more about communication, actually, especially in this new world where we're all remote, and you may never have met anybody. I've been at Twilio for, I joined after the pandemic started, and we're growing so fast. That's the same for over half my team. And we've got people who have never met in person. How do you get things done? How do you work collaboratively? How do you build trust? What is the language that you use and the way in which you use it? Whether it's over video or over Slack or anything else. And I do think it's shifting, and I'm working really hard to be extremely intentional with the way that I communicate. And honestly, I don't always get it right, so I'm working on it, and I think we all are a little bit in this new format, and we're all figuring it out together to some degree.
You know how in startup land, there was a famous say from the founder of Y Combinator, was you have to do things that don't scale. But I found that can also apply in other scenarios in larger organizations? So obviously you have a lot of responsibilities over like working with people, but is there anything in particular that you know doesn't scale, but is so core to your values that you still like to do yourself?
Oh, yes, actually. So one of the things that I want to always do myself, and I'm not the only one who's going to do it. We all have to do it. That is talking to the customer. So it is critical to be, in my view, if you're running a business, running product, you have got to be customer focused, customer obsessed. You need to understand, and it can't all just be filtered through your go-to-market teams. It can't all just be filtered even from my product teams up to me. I need to talk to them. I need to understand what's going on with them. And so I always make time to have those customer conversations. What's most important to them? What are the problems they're trying to solve? And how do I ensure that we are aligned towards their big vision? And we're not going all the way over here in a completely different direction. I think that that's where the magic happens, when the customer's problems and your business opportunity completely intersects. Like, boom, you've hit the nail on the head, and you know that by talking to customers.
And I can imagine it must be difficult as the companies grow, right? Because there are more people who are kind of supposed to be doing that, but we can't forget that this is a team sport. As you said, this is for everybody.
That's right. That's right. And
So-
quite frankly, not just product. I know there's a lot of places that say, product is customer focused and engineering is over here building in some sort of, crazy dark room with never talking to anybody. I don't agree with that either. I'm a big proponent of like business customer focused engineers. And so I want to bring them forward and make sure they get the opportunity to talk to customers as well. Probably not as much as the product people, but you learn so much when you're actually seeing how they use your product day to day.
I'm glad you brought up that topic. I actually come from an engineering background, and there was a lot of these stereotypes around, well, as an engineer, you're supposed to receive an instruction, code it, and give it to the business person, right? They might know something that the engineers don't know because they don't see the sun. And it's just not true. And that applies to many other stereotypes in tech and in product. And I believe in, creating this type of representation of the user in your own teams.
Absolutely. I fully agree with that. And again, when you think about empowered product teams, I'm not just talking about product management teams as a function. For me, and I'm a big fan of Marty Kagan and his books, Inspired and Empowered Product Guru out there. He, a product team is a cross-functional team, and that includes product engineering, design, research, analytics, and others. And it's that combination that's going to come up with the best solution, and that collaboration that happens. It's not just everybody doing their one individual thing. Yes, people need, I am also a big believer of the analogy I use is a soccer field with 6-year-olds on it, and you don't want everybody mobbing the ball. People do need to stay in their positions to some degree, but there are times when you come in and the play shifts a little bit and you switch roles with people, and these things, it requires communication in order to do that elegantly and without all swarming the ball.
So, Jodi, if I had to take a kind of a snapshot at your calendar for a week and think of it as like different blocks, right? One is, as you said, like being with your team, but I can imagine there are others such as recruiting or P&L responsibilities, executive management, whatever that might be. Like, how do you actually structure your week or your month, big picture?
That's a great question about how to do that. I have to say, this is an area for me to continue to evolve, because I do find that I get a lot of requests coming in. One of the things that we try and do at Twilio is have a no meeting Friday, which is great. It does sometimes get filled up with recruiting. I will say it's no meeting Friday, but keep it open for that recruiting opportunity. Again, when you're growing really fast, you have to be available when your candidates are. So that's one thing that we do. We have some pretty big block for our executive team that happens every week. And we make sure that we think about the tactical things that we're reviewing as well as the strategic things, and we separate those out. I make sure that I have a meeting every week with my executive team in order to not only cascade, but make sure that we're really bringing up the things that are most critical for the team as a whole to know about, that break down those silos, not only across function, but across different parts of the product or business lines. I always set aside a decent amount of time for one-on-ones, not only with my direct reports, but I think it's really important to do skip levels. I don't want to just, manage down through them. It's really important that I'm hearing from the team what's going well with them, where are their challenges, and also just strategizing and how do I help them grow their careers, maybe from entry level all the way up to where they want to go. And then a pretty big chunk that goes to, like I said, customers and all of the other departments that I need to interact with on a regular basis. Finance, marketing, sales, and other business units within Twilio. So we're really big on making sure that we are supporting each other, learning from each other, and not just being so myopic about hitting our own goals. We're all going to rise together if we are sharing the time and the space and the knowledge.
One thing that I'm always curious, especially when I talk to product leaders who work at companies where they can actually use the product. Like in this case, Twilio, I can imagine, obviously, your company drinks their own champagne, right? And I will be using it internally. But what else is part of your product stack?
Yeah, so as the GM for Segment Core, I'm really responsible for the overall data pipeline. So for people who don't know, we are a customer data platform. And so we have a lot of integrations out there that allow people to bring their data, their event streaming data, their cloud object data in through our pipeline. We cleanse it, we transform it, we process it, we make sure it's compliant with your governance rules, and then we send it along its merry way where it needs to go, maybe, to another part of our platform, maybe to one of your downstream destinations in a data warehouse or some other tool that allows you to make it actionable. And so those are the types of services that are part of my platform, and then, of course, all the infrastructure that supports it. So.
My last question is always about your younger self, right? Obviously, you've done a lot of different things. If you were to give advice to your younger self in order to maybe get to where you are a little bit faster, what would it be?
Yeah, so younger Jodi, I think what I would tell myself, and I think I've been very lucky. I talked about the fact, we talked about how did I get here with, a degree in psychology and doing it on my own. I would probably learn more about data analysis, and I would learn more about engineering early on. I am one of the lucky people, I think, that's been able to grow my career substantially without having done those things early on. But the market is shifting or has already shifted. Product managers are expected to be even more technical. And I would recommend, even if you are not an engineer or data scientist as your, starting out point, taking a class in that regard. I think if I had done that, I'd be even maybe moved even faster. Who knows?
Thank you so much for your time and honesty. It's been a pleasure to learn from you.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.